The clock on the wall showed 2:15 in the afternoon. Maya Chen stood behind counter number 3 at First National Bank, her fingers moving quickly across the keyboard. She had been working as a bank teller for 3 years now, and the job had become almost automatic. Deposit, withdrawal, balance check, repeat. The same tasks over and over again, 5 days a week. The bank was located in Riverside Heights, one of the most expensive neighborhoods in the city. Most of the customers were older people with nice clothes and expensive watches. They came in to deposit large checks or withdraw money for their vacations. Maya knew many of them by name. Mrs. Peterson always came on Tuesdays to check her account. Mr. Davis visited every Friday to deposit his business earnings. The routine was comfortable and predictable. Maya glanced at the line forming in front of her counter. An elderly man in a suit jacket waited patiently, reading something on his phone. Behind him stood a middle-aged woman with shopping bags from designer stores. The bank was busy today, which was normal for a Tuesday afternoon. Patricia Hendricks, the bank supervisor, walked past Maya's counter. She was a tall woman in her 50s with gray hair pulled back in a tight bun. Patricia took her job very seriously. Just last week, she had gathered all the tellers for a meeting about fraud prevention. "You need to be alert," Patricia had told them, her voice stern and serious. "Criminals are getting smarter every day. They make fake IDs that look real. They steal account information. Some of them are very young, just teenagers. Don't let anyone fool you. Check everything twice, especially with new customers or unusual transactions." Maya had listened carefully to every word. She didn't want to make mistakes. She didn't want criminals to steal money from the bank. She wanted to be a good employee, someone Patricia could trust. The line moved forward. Maya helped the elderly man deposit a check for $8,000. She smiled and made small talk about the weather. Then she helped the middle-aged woman transfer money between accounts. Everything was smooth and normal. Maya looked up as the next customer approached her counter. It was a young black girl, probably still a teenager. She wore a gray hoodie, faded blue jeans, and white sneakers that looked worn out. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail. She had a backpack slung over one shoulder. The girl walked up to the counter without saying anything at first. She reached into her backpack and pulled out a wallet. From the wallet, she took out an ID card and a withdrawal slip. She placed both items on the counter and pushed them toward Maya. Maya picked up the withdrawal slip first. Her eyes widened slightly when she saw the amount written in neat handwriting. $8,000. Cash withdrawal, that was a lot of money. Maya had just processed a deposit for the same amount from the elderly man, but this was different. This was a teenage girl asking for $8,000 in cash. Maya picked up the ID card next. It was a state-issued identification card with a photo of the girl standing in front of her. The name read, Jasmine Williams. Date of birth showed she was 19 years old. Maya studied the photo, then looked at the girl, then back at the photo. The girl looked young, very young, maybe 16 or 17 at most. Could she really be 19? Maya wasn't sure. "You want to withdraw $8,000? Maya asked, trying to keep her voice professional but feeling suspicious. "Yes," Jasmine answered quietly. Her voice was soft but clear. Maya typed the account number into her computer. The screen loaded, showing the account details. Maya's eyebrows rose. The account balance was over $200,000. $200,000, Maya stared at the screen. How could a teenager have so much money? It didn't make sense. People who had that kind of money were usually much older. They were business owners or doctors or lawyers who had worked for many years. They didn't wear old hoodies and worn-out sneakers. Something felt wrong. Maya remembered Patricia's warning about fraud. Young criminals, fake IDs, stolen account information. Maya looked at the ID card again, holding it up to the light above her counter. She was looking for signs that it might be fake. Sometimes fake IDs had small mistakes in the printing or the holograms looked wrong. Jasmine stood quietly, waiting. She didn't seem nervous or worried. She just waited patiently like any normal customer. But Maya's suspicion was growing. The ID looked real, but fake IDs could look very real nowadays. The amount was too large. The account balance was too high. The girl looked too young. Everything about this transaction felt suspicious. "Can you verify your address for me?" Maya asked, her tone becoming more serious. Jasmine recited an address without hesitation. Maya checked it against the computer screen. It matched. "And when did you open this account?" Maya asked. 2 years ago, Jasmine replied. "When I was 17. My mother helped me open it. Maya nodded slowly, but she wasn't satisfied. Young people didn't have accounts with $200,000 in them. This had to be fraud. Maybe the girl had stolen someone's identity. Maybe the account belonged to her mother or another relative, and she was trying to steal from them. Can you tell me where this money came from? Maya asked. Jasmine's expression changed slightly. She looked uncomfortable now. It's my money. I earned it. You earned $200,000? Maya couldn't hide the doubt in her voice. Yes, Jasmine said simply. Maya didn't believe her. How could a teenage girl earn that much money? It wasn't possible. She must be lying. Other customers in line were starting to notice that something was taking a long time. An older woman behind Jasmine checked her watch and sighed impatiently. Maya made a decision. She pressed the button under her counter that signaled for Patricia to come over. This transaction needed supervisor approval. Actually, this transaction needed to be stopped. Patricia appeared within a minute, walking over with her usual brisk, efficient stride. What's the problem? She asked Maya quietly. Maya leaned closer and spoke in a low voice, but not quite low enough. Some nearby customers could still hear her words. This customer wants to withdraw $8,000 in cash. She looks very young, maybe underage. The ID says she's 19, but I don't think that's accurate. And the account has over $200,000 in it. Something doesn't seem right. Patricia's eyes narrowed. She took the ID from Maya and examined it carefully, holding it under the light just as Maya had done. She looked at Jasmine, then at the ID, then at Jasmine again. Miss Williams, is it? Patricia said, her voice cool and professional. Yes, Jasmine replied. This is a very large withdrawal. We need to verify some information. Can you confirm your full address, including the zip code? Jasmine provided the information. Patricia checked it against the computer. And your social security number? Jasmine recited the numbers. Patricia typed them in. Everything matched. But Patricia still looked doubtful. She studied the ID again, turning it over in her hands. This account shows a balance of over $200,000. Can you explain how you acquired these funds? Jasmine's jaw tightened slightly. Maya noticed the change in her expression. The girl was getting upset, which made Maya even more suspicious. Innocent people didn't get upset when asked simple questions. The money is mine, Jasmine said, her voice a bit firmer now. I earned it through my work. Your work? Patricia raised an eyebrow. What kind of work does a 19-year-old do that pays this much money? I'd rather not discuss my personal business in front of everyone, Jasmine said quietly, glancing at the growing line of customers behind her. Several people were watching now, clearly curious about what was happening. Patricia's expression hardened. I understand your concern, but we have protocols we must follow. Large withdrawals require verification, especially when there are questions about the account holder's identity. There are no questions about my identity, Jasmine said, her voice still quiet but carrying an edge now. I gave you my valid ID, everything matches. I've answered all your questions. Nevertheless, Patricia said, I think it would be best if we moved this conversation to a private office where we can sort everything out properly. The way Patricia said, sort everything out, made it clear what she really thought. She thought Jasmine was a fraud. She thought the ID was fake. She thought the account was stolen. Jasmine's eyes flashed with something, anger, hurt, frustration. Maya couldn't quite tell which emotion it was, but the girl was clearly upset now. I'm not going anywhere, Jasmine said firmly. I've provided my valid identification. I've answered your questions. I have every right to access my own money. I want my withdrawal processed now. The bank had gone quiet. Other customers were definitely watching now. Some looked curious. Some looked uncomfortable. The situation was becoming a scene. Patricia and Maya exchanged glances. They were both thinking the same thing. This girl was being difficult because she had something to hide. Innocent customers didn't refuse to cooperate. Innocent customers didn't get defensive. Miss Williams, Patricia said, her voice taking on a harder edge. If you don't cooperate with our verification process, I'll have to place a temporary hold on this account until we can confirm everything is in order. You can come back another day with additional documentation. Jasmine stared at Patricia for a long moment. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out her phone. Without saying another word, she pressed a number and held the phone to her ear. Mom, she said when someone answered. Her voice was quiet but steady. I need you to come to First National Bank right now. There's a problem. They won't let me access my account. She paused, listening. Yes, bring Marcus too. She ended the call and looked at Patricia and Maya. Someone will be here soon to help resolve this situation. Then, Jasmine walked away from the counter and sat down in one of the chairs in the waiting area. She placed her backpack on her lap and stared straight ahead, her face carefully blank. Patricia and Maya stood at the counter, unsure what to do. The next customer in line stepped forward hesitantly and Maya went back to work. But she kept glancing over at the young girl sitting alone in the corner. Maya felt certain she had done the right thing. She had followed the protocols. She had questioned a suspicious transaction. She had protected the bank from possible fraud. She had no idea how wrong she was. 15 minutes passed slowly. Maya helped 3 more customers, but her attention kept drifting to the young girl sitting in the waiting area. Jasmine hadn't moved. She sat perfectly still, staring at nothing, her hands folded in her lap. Other customers noticed her too. An elderly man whispered something to his wife as they left the bank. A woman in business clothes glanced over with obvious curiosity. Maya heard 2 people in line talking quietly about what they had witnessed. They think she's trying to steal money, one woman whispered. She's so young, the other replied. What was she thinking? Maya felt a mix of emotions. Part of her felt satisfied that she had caught a potential fraud. Part of her felt uncomfortable about the whole situation. The girl looked so calm, so dignified sitting there. She didn't look like a criminal. But criminals could look like anyone. Patricia had taught her that. You couldn't judge by appearances. You had to follow the rules and trust your instincts. Patricia stood near the entrance, her arms crossed, watching Jasmine. She had made a phone call to the bank manager, Robert Chen, explaining the situation. He was in a meeting with important clients, but said he would come down as soon as possible. The bank's large glass doors suddenly opened. A woman walked in with quick, purposeful steps. She was African American, probably in her mid-40s, wearing an elegant navy blue business suit and heels. Her hair was styled professionally, and she carried a leather handbag that looked expensive. Behind her came a man in a perfectly tailored gray suit. He was also African American, probably in his 50s, carrying a leather briefcase. He had the confident bearing of someone used to being in charge. The woman's eyes scanned the bank and immediately found Jasmine. Her expression tightened. She walked straight to her daughter and placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Are you okay?" the woman asked quietly. Jasmine nodded. "I'm fine, Mom." The man approached Patricia, who was still standing near the entrance. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a business card, handing it to her with a slight smile that didn't reach his eyes. Patricia read the card. Her face went pale. The card read, Marcus Reed, attorney at law, Reed & Associates. "I'm Marcus Reed," the man said, his voice calm and professional. "I'm the Williams family attorney. I understand there's been some kind of problem with my client's account. I'd like to speak with the bank manager immediately." Patricia swallowed hard. "Of course. Let me get him right away." She hurried toward the back offices, walking faster than usual. Maya watched all of this from her counter, her stomach beginning to twist with worry. An attorney? Why did the girl need an attorney just to withdraw money? Within 3 minutes, Robert Chen emerged from the back offices. He was a well-dressed Asian American man in his 50s, always professional and composed. He was also Maya's uncle by marriage, though they kept their relationship private at work. Robert shook hands with Marcus Reed and the woman who must be Jasmine's mother. "I'm Robert Chen, the bank manager. Please, let's discuss this in the conference room. Would you all follow me?" "My daughter comes too," the woman said firmly. Of course, Robert agreed quickly. The group walked toward the back, disappearing into the conference room. Patricia followed them, glancing back at Maya with a worried expression. Maya felt her anxiety growing. Something about this situation was changing, and she didn't understand what was happening. The other tellers noticed the tension. Sarah, who worked at Counter 5, leaned over during a break in customers. "What's going on?" she whispered. "I don't know," Maya admitted. "That girl wanted to withdraw $8,000, but something seemed suspicious. Patricia and I questioned her, and now she's in there with a lawyer." Sarah's eyes widened. "A lawyer?" "Oh, Maya, that doesn't sound good." Maya didn't respond. She went back to helping customers, but her hands were shaking slightly as she typed. 20 minutes passed. Then 30. The conference room door remained closed. Finally, the door opened. Robert Chen stepped out, his face serious. He walked directly to Maya's counter, ignoring the customer line. "Maya, I need you to come to the conference room right now," he said quietly. Maya's heart began to race. "But I have customer. Sarah will cover your station. Come with me now, please." Maya followed him on unsteady legs. As they walked toward the conference room, Robert said nothing, but his jaw was tight. Maya had never seen him look this stressed. Inside the conference room sat Patricia, Jasmine, her mother, and Marcus Reed. Papers were spread across the table. Marcus had a tablet computer open in front of him. Everyone looked up when Maya entered. "Please sit down, Maya," Robert said, gesturing to an empty chair. Maya sat, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. She felt like she was in trouble, but she didn't understand why. She had followed the rules. She had done her job. Marcus Reed looked at her with an expression that was neither angry nor friendly, just professional and neutral. "Miss Chen, I'd like to go over what happened this afternoon. Please tell me, in your own words, why you refused to process Miss Williams's withdrawal request." Maya glanced at Robert, who nodded slightly. She took a breath and explained. "The transaction seemed suspicious. Miss Williams looks very young, but her ID says she's 19. She was requesting $8,000 in cash, which is a large amount. Her account has a very high balance, over $200,000, which seems unusual for someone her age. We've been trained to watch for fraud, and this fits several warning signs." "What warning signs specifically?" Marcus asked. "Young age, large withdrawal amount, high account balance," Maya listed. "Also her clothing was very casual. Not what we typically see from customers with high balances." The room went very quiet. Maya realized what she had just said. Her clothing. She had mentioned Jasmine's clothing as a reason for suspicion. Jasmine's mother spoke for the first time. Her voice was controlled but cold. "So my daughter was treated like a criminal because she wore a hoodie?" "No, that's not. It was just one factor among several," Maya stammered, feeling panic rise in her chest. "Let me ask you something else," Marcus said, still calm. "In the past month, how many other customers have you questioned when they wanted to withdraw $8,000 or more?" Maya thought hard. I'm not sure. Maybe a few. Can you describe those customers for me?" Maya remembered the elderly man just today. Mr. Davis on Fridays, Mrs. Peterson last week. They were older customers, regular customers we know. And what did they look like? Their race specifically? Maya's mouth went dry. She understood where this was going. They were white. But that's not why. You didn't question them about their withdrawals? The amounts matched their account histories. They're established customers. We know them. Marcus tapped on his tablet. According to your bank's security footage, which we've already reviewed with Mr. Chen's permission, 3 customers withdrew between $10,000 and $15,000 in the past month. All 3 were elderly white customers. All 3 transactions were processed with minimal questions, taking an average of 3 minutes each. He tapped again. 2 younger customers attempted withdrawals of $4,000 and $5,000 respectively. Both were people of color. Both were questioned extensively. Both transactions took over 15 minutes. One customer was asked to provide additional identification beyond what bank policy requires. Maya felt sick. I was just following protocols for fraud prevention. Protocols that are applied inconsistently, Marcus interrupted gently. Protocols that seem to target certain customers based on appearance rather than actual risk factors. Patricia spoke up, her voice defensive. We have a responsibility to protect the bank from fraud. Young people are often used by criminals to... Miss Williams is not a young person being used by criminals, Jasmine's mother said, her voice sharp now. My daughter is a customer with her own money, earned through her own work. She has every legal right to access her funds without being humiliated in public. Robert Chen cleared his throat. Mrs. Williams, I assure you that this bank does not tolerate discrimination of any kind. This was a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? Mrs. Williams leaned forward. My daughter provided valid identification. She answered all questions correctly. Everything matched your system. But your employees still treated her like a thief. They questioned her in front of other customers. They implied she was committing fraud. They refused to process a legal transaction. And now we're hearing it was because of how she looked, how she dressed, how old she appeared to be. Her voice was rising now, the controlled anger breaking through. Do you know what this is really about? Let me say it clearly since no one else wants to. My daughter was treated this way because she's a young black girl. If she were a young white girl in the same clothes requesting the same amount, would your employees have questioned her so aggressively? Would they have refused her transaction? Would they have created a scene in front of other customers? Maya wanted to protest, to say that wasn't true, but the words died in her throat. Because as she thought back over the afternoon, she couldn't honestly say that race hadn't been a factor. Would she have been as suspicious if Jasmine had been white? She wanted to believe she would have, but doubt gnawed at her. Jasmine spoke, her voice quiet but steady. I was so embarrassed. Everyone was staring at me. They were whispering about me. Your employees talked about me like I was a criminal, like I had done something wrong. But I didn't do anything wrong. I just wanted to withdraw my own money from my own account. And now you know what that feels like, her mother said, looking at Maya. To be judged not by who you are or what you've accomplished, but by how you look. To be assumed guilty instead of innocent. To have to prove yourself in ways others never have to prove themselves. Maya felt tears stinging her eyes. I'm sorry. I really am. I didn't mean to. Intent doesn't matter as much as impact, Marcus said quietly. You may not have intended to discriminate, but the impact on Miss Williams was discriminatory treatment. That's what the law considers, and that's what matters. He pulled out several sheets of paper from his briefcase and placed them on the table. These are articles about Jasmine Williams. Perhaps you should read them and learn who you were treating as a suspected criminal today. Robert Chen picked up the first article. His eyes widened as he read. He looked at Jasmine, then back at the article, then at Jasmine again. His face showed shock, then embarrassment, then something close to horror. Patricia leaned over to read over his shoulder. Her face went through the same transformation. Maya couldn't see what the article said, but she could see the reactions. Whatever was written on those pages, it was changing everything. The confident certainty she had felt earlier was crumbling, replaced by a growing dread. Robert Chen put down the papers slowly. When he looked at Jasmine, his expression was completely different from before. It wasn't just apologetic. It was awed, Miss Williams, he said quietly. I had no idea. I'm so very sorry. Jasmine said nothing. She just looked at him with those same calm, dignified eyes. Marcus gathered the papers back. Now you understand. Now everyone in this room understands who my client really is. But here's the important question. Should it matter? Should Jasmine have needed to be someone extraordinary to deserve basic respect and fair treatment? Or should every customer, regardless of age or race or clothing or accomplishments, be treated with equal dignity? No one answered. The question hung in the air like an accusation. Robert Chen finally broke the heavy silence. Marcus, Mrs. Williams, Jasmine, may I please see those articles? I want to understand the full situation. Marcus nodded and spread the papers across the conference table. There were printouts from major news websites, magazine articles, and official documents. Robert began reading while Patricia leaned in to see. The first article was from Forbes magazine, dated 2 years ago. The headline read, Teen Genius Creates Mental Health App That's Changing Lives. Below it was a photo of a younger Jasmine, smiling and holding a phone displaying her app. Robert read aloud, his voice growing quieter with each sentence. At just 15 years old, Jasmine Williams identified a critical gap in mental health support for teenagers. Using coding skills she taught herself from online tutorials, she created Mindspace, an app that provides free, anonymous mental health resources and peer support for young people in crisis. Patricia's hand went to her mouth. Robert continued reading. The app went viral within months, reaching over 2 million downloads in its first year. It caught the attention of mental health professionals and tech companies alike. Users praised the app for its accessibility, its non-judgmental interface, and its ability to connect struggling teens with help when they needed it most. Maya sat frozen in her chair, unable to process what she was hearing. The girl she had suspected of fraud had created an app used by millions of people. Marcus picked up another article, this one from TechCrunch. Perhaps this one is relevant too, he said, handing it to Robert. The headline read, Mindspace acquired by Thrive Tech for $2.3 million. The article was dated 18 months ago. Just after Jasmine turned 17, Robert's hands trembled slightly as he read. In an unprecedented move, 17-year-old Jasmine Williams has sold her mental health app Mindspace to Thrive Tech, a major player in the wellness technology sector, for $2.3 million. The deal includes a consulting contract that will keep Williams involved in the app's development while allowing her to pursue other projects. $2.3 million, Patricia whispered. She was 17. I was almost 18, Jasmine said quietly. It was the first time she had spoken since the articles came out. The deal took 6 months to finalize. My mom had to sign all the contracts since I was a minor. We had lawyers review everything. Mrs. Williams, whose name they now knew was Diane, reached over and squeezed her daughter's hand. It was a very stressful time. Jasmine was trying to finish high school while negotiating with a major corporation. But she handled it with more maturity than most adults I know. Marcus pulled out more documents. After the sale, Jasmine invested wisely. She put money into a college fund, savings accounts, and some conservative investments. She also donated a significant amount to mental health organizations and scholarship funds for young people interested in technology. He handed another paper to Robert. This is from the local newspaper 8 months ago. Jasmine gave a talk at the city's Youth Innovation Summit about entrepreneurship and social responsibility. Robert looked at the photo accompanying the article. It showed Jasmine on a stage speaking to an audience of hundreds. She wore professional clothes in that photo, and she looked confident and articulate. But that wasn't how she had looked today. Today she had worn casual clothes, looking like any normal teenager. And they had treated her like a criminal because of it. Patricia finally found her voice. Miss Williams, I don't know what to say. This is extraordinary. You're extraordinary. I'm just a person, Jasmine said softly. A person who wanted to withdraw her own money. The simplicity of that statement hit hard. Marcus let it sit for a moment before continuing. Let me be clear about what happened here today, he said, his voice still calm but carrying unmistakable authority. Jasmine came to this bank, her bank where she has been a customer for 2 years, to make a legal withdrawal. She provided valid identification. She answered all verification questions correctly. Everything matched your system perfectly, but your employees still refused her transaction. He looked at Maya, then at Patricia. Why? Because she looked young. Because she wore casual clothes. Because she's a black girl. And your employees couldn't imagine that a black girl could legitimately have that much money. That's not fair. Patricia protested weakly. We were following fraud prevention protocols. Protocols that you don't apply equally to all customers. Marcus countered. I've already shown you the evidence from your own security footage. Older white customers are processed quickly with minimal questions. Younger customers of color face extensive interrogation. That's not fraud prevention. That's discrimination. Robert Chen looked ill. As the bank manager, this was ultimately his responsibility. Marcus, I want to assure you that this bank has strict anti-discrimination policies. What happened today was not in line with those policies. Then your policies aren't being followed, Diane said sharply. And if they aren't being followed, they're meaningless. She turned to look at Maya directly. Do you understand what you put my daughter through today? You humiliated her in front of a room full of strangers. You questioned her honesty and integrity. You treated her like a criminal. And why? Because she didn't look the way you expected a wealthy customer to look. Maya felt tears running down her cheeks now. I'm so sorry. I truly am. I was trying to do my job. Your job is to serve customers fairly, Diane interrupted. Your job is to treat people with respect. Your job is not to make assumptions about people based on their appearance. She wasn't yelling, but her words cut deep. Do you know what conversation I had to have with Jasmine when she was 12 years old? I had to explain to my brilliant, kind, creative daughter that the world wouldn't always see her the way I see her. I had to tell her that some people would judge her by the color of her skin before they knew anything about her character. I had to teach her that she would need to work twice as hard to get half the recognition that others receive easily. Diane's voice broke slightly. I thought that maybe, just maybe, if she accomplished extraordinary things, she would be protected from that kind of treatment. I thought her success would speak for itself. I was wrong. Today proved that even with all her accomplishments, even with millions of dollars in the bank, even with her face in national magazines, my daughter can still be treated like a suspect in her own bank. Jasmine squeezed her mother's hand. Mom, it's okay. It's not okay, Diane said firmly. It will never be okay. Marcus pulled out another document. This is a copy of the Equal Credit Opportunity Act. It prohibits discrimination in credit transactions based on race, color, religion, national origin, sex, marital status, or age. While withdrawals aren't credit transactions, the principle applies to all banking services under various state and federal regulations. He placed another document on the table. This is your bank's own policy statement published on your website. It explicitly states that First National Bank provides equal service to all customers, regardless of race, ethnicity, age, or appearance. Robert Chen read his own bank's policy statement with growing discomfort. The words were clear and unambiguous. The bank promised equal treatment. Today they had failed to deliver. Marcus, Robert said carefully. What can we do to make this right? That's an interesting question, Marcus replied. The legal answer is complicated. Jasmine has grounds for a complaint with the State Banking Commission. She has grounds for a civil rights complaint with federal authorities. She potentially has grounds for a lawsuit claiming discrimination and emotional distress. Patricia went pale. Maya felt like she might be sick. However, Marcus continued, my client is not a vindictive person. She doesn't want to destroy careers or hurt the bank. What she wants is simple. She wants acknowledgement that what happened was wrong. She wants meaningful changes so it doesn't happen to others. And she wants her withdrawal processed without further harassment. Of course, Robert said quickly. I'll process the withdrawal myself immediately, and there will be no fees on her account for the next year and… Stop, Marcus said gently. Offering to waive fees isn't making this right. That's trying to buy away the problem. What matters is whether this bank is willing to look honestly at its practices and make real changes. He pulled out his tablet and brought up a document. I took the liberty of reviewing your bank's public records while we were waiting. In the past 3 years, this branch has had 4 formal complaints filed with the Banking Commission. 3 of those complaints involved customers of color reporting discriminatory treatment. The bank responded to each complaint with generic statements about taking all concerns seriously. But I see no evidence of systematic changes. Robert Chen's face showed shame. I wasn't aware of all those complaints. They should have been brought to my attention. They were sent to your corporate office, Marcus said, which apparently filed them away without adequate response. That's a pattern, Mr. Chen, not an isolated incident. Diane spoke again, her voice tired now. When Jasmine came home from college for the summer, she was so excited to handle her own finances like an adult. She wanted to make her own withdrawals, manage her own investments, be independent. I was proud of her. And then this happened on her first solo visit to the bank. She looked at her daughter with profound sadness. Now she's learned another painful lesson about how the world works. She's learned that her accomplishments don't protect her, that her money doesn't make her immune to prejudice, that she can be successful beyond most people's dreams and still be treated with suspicion. Jasmine finally spoke again, and her voice was small in a way it hadn't been before. I just wanted to feel normal. I didn't want to be the genius app creator or the teenage millionaire. I just wanted to go to the bank like a regular person and take out some money. Is that too much to ask? The question hung in the air. No one answered because they all knew the truth. It shouldn't be too much to ask. But for Jasmine, today it had been. Marcus began gathering his papers. Here's what I propose. The bank conducts a complete review of its practices regarding customer verification and fraud prevention. The bank implements mandatory training on unconscious bias and equal service standards for all staff. The bank establishes a clear written protocol for verification procedures that must be applied consistently to all customers regardless of appearance, and the bank creates an independent oversight process for discrimination complaints. He looked at Robert Chen. If the bank agrees to these measures, with a timeline and accountability structure, then Jasmine will not pursue legal action or file formal complaints. But if the bank refuses or if changes aren't implemented seriously, then we will pursue every available legal remedy. Robert nodded slowly. I agree to all of that. I give you my word. Your word isn't enough, Marcus said bluntly. I need it in writing, signed by you and your corporate officers with specific deadlines and consequences for non-compliance. You'll have it, Robert promised. By the end of the week, Marcus looked at Jasmine and Diane. Is that acceptable to you? Diane looked at her daughter. Jasmine thought for a long moment, then nodded. Yes, but I want one more thing. What's that? Marcus asked. Jasmine looked at Maya. I want her to understand. Really understand. Not just feel bad because she got caught. I want her to understand why what she did was wrong, and I want her to commit to doing better. Everyone looked at Maya. She wiped her tears and met Jasmine's eyes. I do understand. And I am so sorry. You deserved better. You deserved respect. I let my assumptions control my actions, and that was wrong. I will do better. I promise you. Jasmine studied her for a moment, then nodded slightly. It wasn't forgiveness exactly, but it was acknowledgement. Marcus closed his briefcase with a decisive click. Before we conclude this meeting, I think it's important that everyone in this room understands the full scope of what happened here today. Not just the surface level, but the deeper implications. He looked around the table at each person. Maya, Patricia, Mr. Chen, I'd like to walk you through something. It won't be comfortable, but it's necessary. Robert Chen nodded. Please, go ahead. Marcus pulled out his tablet again and opened a spreadsheet. After Diane called me, I spent 20 minutes doing research. I looked at this bank's public transaction data, customer demographics, and complaint history. Let me share what I found. He turned the tablet so everyone could see. This branch serves a neighborhood that is 78% white, 15% Asian, and 7% Black or Latino. Your customer base roughly matches those demographics. He swiped to another screen. However, when we look at customers who have been asked to provide additional verification beyond the standard ID check, the numbers tell a different story. In the past year, 63 customers were asked for additional verification. Can you guess the racial breakdown? No one answered. 41 of those 63 customers were people of color. Marcus said quietly, that's 65%. But people of color only make up about 22% of your customer base. So they're being questioned at almost 3 times the rate you'd expect if verification was truly random. Patricia shifted uncomfortably in her seat. That could be coincidence. Or maybe what? Marcus asked gently. Maybe people of color are more likely to commit fraud. Is that what you were going to suggest? Patricia's face reddened. No, because the data doesn't support that, Marcus continued. Of those 63 customers who received additional questioning, how many do you think were actually involved in fraudulent activity? He paused for effect. 3. 3 customers out of 63 were found to have irregularities in their accounts. 2 were white customers. 1 was Asian. 0 were Black or Latino customers. Maya felt sick. So we were questioning innocent people. You were questioning innocent people of color at much higher rates than innocent white people, Marcus corrected. That's not fraud prevention. That's racial profiling. Diane leaned forward. Let me tell you what it feels like from our side. Every time Jasmine goes into a nice store, she's watched more closely than white shoppers. When she walks through certain neighborhoods, people lock their car doors. When she succeeds at something, people act surprised as if they didn't expect a black girl to be capable of excellence. Her voice grew more intense. Do you know how exhausting that is? To constantly be seen as suspicious? To always have to prove yourself? To know that no matter what you accomplish, some people will always see your skin color before they see your humanity? Jasmine added quietly. I have a friend named Emma. She's white. We both applied to the same summer tech program last year. We both got in. But the way people talked about it was different. With Emma, people said, "Oh, that's wonderful. You must be so talented." With me, people said, "Oh, that's great." Or like when I park my car, Diane said, I drive a nice car, a BMW. I saved for years to buy it. But I can't tell you how many times someone has asked me if I'm the owner or made comments suggesting I must have gotten it through some suspicious means. Meanwhile, my white coworkers with the same car never face those questions. Marcus nodded. These are called microaggressions. They're small acts of discrimination that individually might seem minor, but they accumulate, they wear you down, and they're part of a larger system of bias. He looked at Maya. You said earlier that you didn't mean any harm, that you were just doing your job. I believe you, but that's part of the problem. You weren't consciously deciding to be racist. You were operating on unconscious bias, assumptions you didn't even realize you had. I'm not racist, Maya protested weakly. I have friends who are... Marcus held up a hand. Having friends of different races doesn't mean you don't have biases. Everyone has biases. They're formed by our culture, our media, our experiences. The question isn't whether you have biases. The question is whether you're willing to acknowledge them and work to overcome them. He pulled up another document on his tablet. There have been numerous studies on this. In one study, researchers sent identical resumes to employers, changing only the names to sound either stereotypically white or stereotypically black. The resumes with white-sounding names received 50% more callbacks. Another study showed that doctors prescribe pain medication differently based on the race of the patient. Even when the patients report the same level of pain, black patients receive less pain medication than white patients with identical symptoms. Another study found that teachers grade the same essay differently based on whether they think it was written by a black student or a white student. The content is identical, but the perceived race of the writer affects the grade. Patricia spoke up, sounding defensive. But what does any of that have to do with banking? Everything, Marcus said firmly. It shows that bias exists in every sector: medicine, education, employment, housing, and yes, banking. It's not about individual bad people making intentionally racist decisions. It's about widespread unconscious bias that affects how we treat people. Robert Chen had been listening quietly. Now he spoke. So what you're saying is that even with the best intentions, our employees might still be treating customers differently based on race. Not might be, Marcus corrected. The data I showed you proves it. This isn't theoretical. It's happening in your bank right now. He looked at Maya and Patricia. When Jasmine walked in today, what did you see? Be honest, Maya struggled to find words. I saw a young person, wearing casual clothes, requesting a large amount of money. And what did you assume? Marcus pressed. Maya's voice was barely a whisper. I assumed she couldn't legitimately have that money. I assumed something was wrong. Why? Marcus asked. Plenty of young people have money. Plenty of people wear casual clothes to the bank. Why did those factors make you suspicious in this case? Maya didn't answer. She couldn't answer. Because the truth was becoming clear and it was ugly. Diane answered for her. Because she's black. That's the factor that made the difference. A young white girl in a hoodie with a large account balance would have been seen as a trust fund kid. A rich family's daughter. Someone's privileged child. But a young black girl with money must be up to something suspicious. That's not fair, Patricia said. But her voice lacked conviction. Isn't it? Diane challenged. Let me ask you something. In your mind, when you picture a wealthy person, what do they look like? Patricia hesitated. I don't know. Different people look different ways. Picture a CEO, Diane pushed. Picture a doctor. Picture someone who owns multiple properties. What's the image in your mind? Patricia looked uncomfortable. Usually white. And older. But that's just because statistics reflect inequality, not capability. Marcus interrupted. Yes, white people hold more wealth in this country. But that's the result of hundreds of years of discriminatory policies. From slavery to redlining to employment discrimination. The statistics don't tell you who deserves wealth. They tell you who has had access to opportunities to build wealth. Jasmine spoke again, her voice stronger now. I deserve my money. I earned it. I created something valuable that helped people. My race has nothing to do with my capability or my right to access my own funds. You're absolutely right, Robert Chen said. And I'm ashamed that our bank treated you as if you didn't deserve respect and fair service. He turned to Maya and Patricia. I'm going to ask you both a hard question, and I want honest answers. Have you ever questioned an elderly white customer the way you questioned Jasmine today? Have you ever asked them to prove where their money came from? Have you ever suspected them of fraud based on how young they looked or what they wore? Maya thought hard. She remembered Mrs. Peterson, who regularly withdrew large amounts. She remembered Mr. Davis with his weekly deposits. She remembered the elderly man from today who withdrew $8,000. She had never questioned any of them. She had smiled, made small talk, processed their transactions efficiently. She had trusted them immediately. No, Maya admitted. I haven't. Why not? Robert asked. Because they seemed legitimate. They looked like they belonged. And Jasmine didn't look like she belonged, Robert finished. That's the problem. That's the bias we need to address. Patricia finally spoke, and her voice was shaky. I honestly didn't realize I was treating people differently. I thought I was being fair. That's how unconscious bias works, Marcus explained. It feels fair to you because your assumptions feel normal. But they're not based on evidence. They're based on stereotypes and cultural conditioning, Diane added. And it's not just about individual interactions. It's about the cumulative effect. Every time someone questions Jasmine unnecessarily, it sends a message that she doesn't belong, that she's not trustworthy, that she has to prove herself in ways others don't. She looked at her daughter with deep sadness. Jasmine is strong. She's accomplished. She's confident. But even she isn't immune to the psychological damage of constant suspicion and discrimination. No one is. Jasmine's eyes were glistening with unshed tears. Sometimes I wonder if it's worth it. I work so hard, I achieve so much, and it still doesn't matter. I'm still just a black girl who doesn't look like she belongs. Don't say that, Diane said firmly, taking her daughter's hand. Your worth isn't determined by how other people treat you. Your accomplishments matter. You matter. Marcus gave them a moment, then continued. This is why training and policy changes are so important. It's not enough to say you don't intend to discriminate. You need systems in place that prevent discrimination from happening, whether it's intentional or not. He looked at Robert. Your verification protocols need to be standardized and applied uniformly. If you ask for additional verification from one customer, you should ask the same questions of every customer making a similar transaction. No judgment calls based on appearance. Clear, consistent procedures. I understand, Robert said, and I commit to making those changes. You'll also need to look at your hiring and promotion practices, Marcus added. Diverse staff can help identify and address bias in ways that homogeneous staff cannot. If everyone working here has the same background and perspective, they'll have the same blind spots. He closed his tablet. But ultimately, this comes down to something simple. Empathy. The ability to see things from another person's perspective, to understand that their experience of the world might be very different from yours. He looked at Maya. You need to understand that when Jasmine walks into this bank, she's carrying the weight of every other time she's been treated with suspicion. Every time someone has questioned her right to be somewhere or to have something. That context matters. Maya nodded, tears streaming down her face. I understand now. I really do. And I'm so sorry. Sorry is a starting point, Marcus said. But what matters is what you do next. How you change your behavior. How you treat the next young person of color who walks through that door. The conference room fell silent. The weight of the conversation hung heavy in the air. Everyone present had learned something uncomfortable today. They had seen the reality of bias not as an abstract concept, but as a concrete harm inflicted on a real person, and that truth was harder to face than any of them had expected. The meeting ended with Robert Chen personally processing Jasmine's withdrawal. He treated her with careful respect, apologizing again as he counted out the money. Jasmine accepted it quietly, placed it in her backpack, and left the bank with her mother and Marcus. Maya watched them go, feeling hollow inside. She returned to her counter, but she couldn't focus on her work. The other tellers had questions, but she couldn't bring herself to explain what had happened. How could she tell them that she had humiliated a teenage millionaire? That she had accused an accomplished app developer of fraud? That she had revealed biases she didn't even know she had? That evening, Robert Chen called an emergency meeting with the bank's corporate leadership. He presented Marcus's findings and the signed agreement he had made with the Williams family. Within 2 days, a full investigation was launched. The corporate office sent a team to review the branch's practices, interview staff, and examine security footage from the past year. What they found confirmed Marcus's research and made the problem even clearer. The investigation team discovered that Maya and Patricia weren't the only employees with bias issues. The whole branch had developed a culture where certain customers were scrutinized more heavily than others. Young people of color, people wearing casual clothes, people who didn't fit the profile of a wealthy customer, were all treated with more suspicion. It wasn't written down anywhere. No one had given explicit instructions to treat customers differently. But the culture had developed organically, fed by unconscious assumptions and reinforced by lack of oversight. Robert received the investigation report in his office, reading through pages of documented incidents. His hands shook as he realized how badly he had failed as a manager. He had been so focused on fraud prevention and efficiency that he hadn't noticed the discrimination happening under his supervision. 1 week after the incident with Jasmine, Robert called another meeting. This time, every employee of the branch was required to attend. Patricia sat in the front row, looking smaller than usual. Maya sat near the back, wanting to be invisible. Robert stood at the front of the room, the investigation report in his hands. His voice was serious and heavy. I'm going to be direct with you all. Our bank discriminated against a customer. A young black woman was treated with suspicion and disrespect simply because of how she looked. This is unacceptable. It's illegal. And it ends now. He explained what had happened with Jasmine, though he didn't use her name. He shared the statistics from Marcus's research. He showed the data from their own security footage. The numbers were undeniable. Some employees looked shocked. Others looked uncomfortable. A few looked defensive. "I know some of you are thinking that you personally haven't done anything wrong," Robert continued. "But silence is complicity. If you've witnessed discriminatory treatment and said nothing, you're part of the problem. If you've had suspicions that our practices weren't fair but didn't speak up, you contributed to the culture that allowed this to happen." He outlined the changes that would be implemented immediately. New verification protocols that applied to all customers equally. Mandatory bias training for all staff. A confidential complaint process for customers who felt discriminated against. Regular audits to ensure policies were being followed. "Patricia Hendricks is suspended without pay for 2 weeks while we complete our investigation," Robert announced. "Her future with this bank depends on her willingness to acknowledge what happened and commit to meaningful change." Patricia's face crumpled. She had worked at the bank for 15 years. Her career was now in jeopardy because of one afternoon's poor judgment, or rather, because of years of accumulated bias that finally resulted in serious consequences. "Maya Chen is on probation for 6 months, Robert continued. "She will undergo intensive training on fair banking practices and unconscious bias. She will have monthly evaluations. Any further incidents will result in immediate termination." Maya felt everyone's eyes on her. She wanted to disappear. Her uncle Robert had given her this job, had trusted her, and she had betrayed that trust. Worse, she had betrayed her own values. She had always thought of herself as a good person, someone who treated everyone fairly. The past week had shattered that self-image. After the meeting, several co-workers avoided Maya. They didn't want to be associated with her mistake. But one person approached her. Sarah, the teller from Counter 5. "I'm sorry this happened to you," Sarah said quietly, "but I'm glad it's being addressed. I've seen things that bothered me, but I never felt I could speak up." Maya looked at her with surprise. "What do you mean?" "Last month I watched Patricia question a young Latino man for 10 minutes about where he got the money he was depositing. It was his paycheck from his job, a legitimate paycheck from a well-known company, but she acted like he might have forged it. The whole time I thought it wasn't right, but I didn't say anything. I was afraid of causing problems." Sarah looked down at her hands. "So yes, what you did was wrong, but the problem is bigger than just you, and maybe now we can all do better." Over the following weeks, the changes began to take effect. A consultant came to conduct bias training sessions. Maya attended every session, taking notes, asking questions, genuinely trying to understand. The training was uncomfortable. They watched videos of real situations where bias affected decisions. They did exercises designed to reveal unconscious associations. Maya discovered that she held stereotypes she hadn't been aware of. Automatic assumptions her brain made before her conscious mind could intervene. She learned about the concept of implicit bias, which meant that even people who consciously believed in equality could still have automatic prejudiced responses. The key was becoming aware of these biases and actively working to counteract them. One exercise particularly affected Maya. The trainer showed photos of different people and asked the group to quickly write down the first words that came to mind. Then they analyzed their responses. When shown a photo of a well-dressed white man, Maya had written, "Professional, successful, trustworthy." When shown a photo of a young black man in casual clothes, she had written, "Casual, uncertain, careful." The trainer pointed out that she had used positive words for the white man and neutral to negative words for the black man, even though both photos showed people simply standing and smiling. "This is how bias works," the trainer explained. "Your brain makes snap judgments based on appearance and cultural conditioning. You didn't consciously decide to view these people differently, but your automatic responses reveal underlying associations." Maya was forced to confront a painful truth. Despite considering herself unbiased, her brain had been trained by a lifetime of cultural messages that associated whiteness with success and trustworthiness, while associating blackness with something lesser. Understanding this didn't make her feel better. It made her feel worse. But the trainer emphasized that awareness was the first step toward change. "You can't eliminate bias entirely," the trainer said, "but you can learn to recognize it and consciously override your automatic responses. You can choose to treat people based on their actual behavior and credentials, not on your initial gut reactions." Meanwhile, Patricia's suspension ended and she returned to work. But she was different, quieter, more careful. She had spent her 2 weeks without pay thinking about her career, her actions, and her future. She knew she was lucky to still have a job. Robert Chen watched his staff carefully during this transition period. He held one-on-one meetings with each employee, asking them to share their thoughts on the new policies and their own experiences with bias, either as perpetrators or as victims. Maya's meeting with Robert was particularly difficult. He was not just her manager but also family, married to her aunt. She had disappointed him professionally and personally. "I'm sorry, Uncle Robert," Maya said, using the family title outside of work for the first time. "I let you down." "You did," Robert agreed, not softening the truth. "But what matters now is how you move forward. Are you learning from this? Are you committed to change?" "Yes," Maya said firmly. "I've been thinking about it constantly. I keep replaying that afternoon in my mind, wishing I could do it differently. Wishing I had seen Jasmine as a person deserving respect instead of a suspicious transaction." "Keep that feeling," Robert advised. "Use it to drive better choices in the future. Because this isn't just about following rules. It's about seeing the humanity in every person who walks through that door." The bank also made changes beyond just training. They created a customer advisory board that included people from diverse backgrounds who could provide feedback on bank policies and practices. They revised their marketing materials to show more diverse customers. They established partnerships with community organizations that served people of color. Robert personally called Diane Williams to update her on the changes. She listened carefully, asked tough questions, and expressed cautious optimism. "These sound like good first steps," Diane said. "But what matters is whether these changes stick. Will you still be doing this training a year from now? 2 years from now? Or will everyone forget once the immediate crisis passes?" "I've made this a permanent part of our operations," Robert assured her. "The training is now quarterly, not just one time. The audits are ongoing. The advisory board meets monthly. This isn't a temporary fix. This is a fundamental change in how we operate." "I hope so," Diane said, "for the sake of other customers who might face what Jasmine faced." Robert also did something unusual. He created a scholarship fund in Jasmine's honor, to be awarded annually to a young person from an underrepresented community who showed entrepreneurial promise. He didn't ask the Williams family for permission first. He simply did it and then informed them. When Diane heard about the scholarship, she was moved but conflicted. "It's a generous gesture," she told Robert, "but I hope you understand that no amount of money can undo the harm done to my daughter." "I know," Robert said quietly. "The scholarship isn't about undoing the past. It's about trying to create a better future, and it's about ensuring that Jasmine's experience leads to something positive, even though it should never have happened in the first place." 3 months after the incident, Marcus Reed requested a follow-up meeting. He came to the bank with a checklist, verifying that all the agreed-upon changes had been implemented. He reviewed training records, interviewed staff, examined the new protocols, and checked the audit reports. He met with Robert in his office at the end of his review. "I'm impressed," Marcus admitted. "You've done more than I expected. The changes appear to be genuine and substantive." "Thank you," Robert said. "But I know we're not done. Changing culture takes time. We'll need to maintain these efforts long-term." "That's exactly right," Marcus agreed. "The true test will be 5 years from now, 10 years from now. Will these practices still be in place? Will new employees be trained properly? Will you maintain the same level of vigilance?" He leaned forward. "Here's my concern. Right now, everyone is motivated because of the recent incident. But as time passes, people forget. They get comfortable. They slip back into old patterns. You need systems in place that maintain accountability even when the immediate pressure is gone." Robert nodded. "I've thought about that. We've built the training and audits into our operational budget permanently. I've also made it part of my own performance evaluation. My bosses will judge me partly on our success in providing equitable service. If I fail at this, I fail as a manager." "Good," Marcus said. "That's the kind of structural change that lasts." He stood to leave, then paused. "How is Maya doing?" "She's struggling," Robert admitted. "This has been hard on her. She's learning and growing, but she carries a lot of guilt. I think that guilt might actually be helpful, though. It's keeping her accountable to herself." Marcus considered this. "Tell her something for me. Tell her that acknowledging bias and working to overcome it is one of the hardest things a person can do. It requires confronting uncomfortable truths about yourself. The fact that she's doing that work instead of making excuses or denying the problem shows character. I'll tell her, Robert promised. After Marcus left, Robert sat in his office thinking about everything that had happened. One afternoon had changed so much. One interaction had revealed problems that had existed for years. One young woman's courage in standing up for herself had forced an entire institution to examine its practices, and it had all started because someone had made assumptions based on appearance rather than treating a customer with basic respect and dignity. 6 months had passed since the incident. Maya sat in another training session, but this one was different. It wasn't mandatory. She had chosen to attend a weekend workshop on racial justice and equity, using her own time and money. The workshop was held at a community center across town. Maya looked around the room at the other participants. They came from all backgrounds, all professions. Teachers, nurses, business owners, students. All of them were there because they wanted to understand and do better. During a break, Maya found herself thinking about that Tuesday afternoon in the bank. She thought about it often, actually. The memory had become a turning point in her life, a moment that divided her understanding of herself into before and after. Before, she had been comfortably unaware of her own biases. After, she couldn't unsee them. She noticed when she made assumptions about people. She caught herself having automatic reactions based on appearance. And each time, she had to consciously pause and question whether those reactions were fair. It was exhausting, but it was necessary. During one of the workshop sessions, the facilitator asked participants to share a time when they had made a mistake related to bias. Maya's hands trembled as she raised her hand. She hadn't planned to share, but something pushed her to speak. She told the story of Jasmine, though she didn't use her name. She described her assumptions, her actions, and the painful revelation that followed. Her voice broke several times as she talked. When she finished, the room was quiet. Then the facilitator spoke gently. "Thank you for sharing that. It takes courage to admit our mistakes publicly. Can you tell us what you've learned from that experience?" Maya took a breath. "I learned that good intentions aren't enough. I learned that thinking I'm not racist doesn't mean I don't have biases. I learned that I hurt someone deeply because I judged her by her appearance instead of treating her with respect. And I learned that awareness is just the beginning. The real work is changing my behavior every single day." After the workshop, an older black woman approached Maya. "I appreciated your honesty," the woman said. "A lot of people never get to the point of acknowledging their biases. They defend themselves, make excuses, or deny there's a problem. The fact that you're here doing this work means something." "Thank you," Maya said, "but I still feel terrible about what happened." "Good," the woman said firmly. "Hold on to that feeling. Let it motivate you to keep doing better. But don't let guilt paralyze you. Use it as fuel for change." Maya nodded, taking those words to heart. Meanwhile, Jasmine Williams had been on her own journey. The incident at the bank had hurt her deeply, more than she initially wanted to admit. For weeks afterward, she felt angry, sad, and discouraged. Her mother had suggested therapy, and Jasmine had agreed. In therapy, Jasmine talked about the weight of being exceptional. People expected her to be strong, to handle discrimination with grace, to turn every negative experience into a learning opportunity. But sometimes she just wanted to be treated normally. Sometimes she was tired of being a symbol or a teaching moment. "You're allowed to feel hurt," her therapist told her. "You're allowed to be angry. What happened to you was wrong and your feelings about it are valid." That permission to feel helped. Jasmine didn't have to be strong all the time. She could acknowledge her pain while also deciding what to do with it. And what Jasmine decided was to use her experience to help others. She created a new project, a financial literacy program specifically for young people of color. The program taught practical skills like budgeting, saving, investing, and managing bank accounts. But it also taught something equally important: how to advocate for yourself in financial institutions. Jasmine called the program Money Moves. She worked with community organizations to offer free workshops. She created online videos explaining banking basics. She shared her own story, not for sympathy, but to show other young people that they had rights and deserved respect. The program grew quickly. Within 3 months, Jasmine had taught workshops to over 200 young people. She heard stories from many of them about their own experiences with discrimination in banks, stores, and other businesses. Some stories were worse than hers. Some were more subtle. but they all reflected the same underlying problem: assumptions based on appearance rather than evidence. One Saturday afternoon, Jasmine gave a presentation at a youth center. After she finished, a 15-year-old black girl named Keisha approached her nervously. "I want to open a bank account," Keisha said. "I've been saving money from my part-time job, but I'm scared. What if they treat me like they treated you?" Jasmine felt her heart clench. This was exactly why she was doing this work. She sat down with Keisha and talked through strategies: how to prepare documentation, how to speak up if questioned unfairly, how to ask for a manager if needed, how to know your rights. But the most important thing, Jasmine said, is to remember that you deserve respect. If a bank treats you poorly, it's not because something is wrong with you. It's because something is wrong with them. Don't let anyone make you feel less than you are. Keisha left that day with more confidence, and Jasmine felt a sense of purpose. Her painful experience could help prevent others from feeling the same way. Diane Williams watched her daughter transform pain into power. She was proud but also heartbroken. Proud that Jasmine was so strong and purposeful, heartbroken that she needed to be. "Sometimes I wonder if we did the right thing," Diane said to Marcus over coffee one afternoon. "Maybe we should have sued the bank, made them pay financially for what they did." Marcus considered this. Jasmine made the choice she felt was right. She wanted change, not revenge. Not everyone would make that choice, and that's okay, but we have to respect her decision. "I know," Diane sighed. "I just hate that she had to be so gracious about it. Why do black people always have to be the ones who educate others about their own prejudice? Why is the burden of fixing racism placed on the victims of racism?" "It's not fair," Marcus agreed. "It's never been fair." But Jasmine isn't doing this because she has to. She's doing it because she wants to. Because she sees value in it. That's her choice, and it's a valid one. Diane nodded. "You're right. And I am proud of her. I just wish the world was better. I wish my daughter didn't have to fight these battles." "Someday maybe the world will be better," Marcus said. "But only if people keep fighting these battles." Jasmine is part of that fight now. Back at First National Bank, the changes had become normal. New employees received bias training as part of their orientation. Quarterly refresher courses kept the topic alive. The Customer Advisory Board met monthly, providing feedback and catching problems before they escalated. Patricia had remained with the bank, but had changed significantly. She was more careful, more thoughtful, more willing to question her own assumptions. She attended extra training sessions voluntarily. She had even joined a community discussion group on racial justice, wanting to understand beyond just her workplace obligations. One day, a young black man came to Patricia's counter to open a new account. He wore jeans and a basketball jersey. He looked about 20 years old. Patricia felt that familiar instinct, that automatic assessment of, this person doesn't look like a typical customer. But this time she recognized it immediately. That was her bias talking. She took a breath and pushed past it. "Good afternoon," Patricia said warmly. "How can I help you today?" "I want to open a checking account," the young man said. "Excellent. Let me walk you through the process. Do you have your ID with you?" The young man provided his identification. Patricia processed it efficiently, asking the same standard questions she would ask any customer. She didn't interrogate him. She didn't express surprise at anything. She simply treated him with professional respect. The whole interaction took 10 minutes. The young man left with his new account, smiling and thanking Patricia for her help. It was a completely normal transaction. After he left, Patricia sat for a moment, feeling something like relief. She had done it right. She had treated someone fairly, without letting her biases control her actions. It seemed like such a small thing, but it felt significant. Maya had witnessed the interaction from her counter. Afterward, she caught Patricia's eye and nodded slightly. They both understood what had just happened. Progress, one interaction at a time. Robert Chen watched his staff carefully during this period. He saw the changes, small but real. He also heard from customers, including members of the advisory board, that the bank felt different, more welcoming, more equitable, but he knew they couldn't become complacent. Bias was like rust, always trying to creep back in. Constant attention was required to keep it from taking hold again. 1 year after the incident with Jasmine, Robert organized a special event. He invited community leaders, customers, and staff to celebrate the bank's progress and recommit to ongoing improvement. He also invited Jasmine and her family, hoping they would come but understanding if they chose not to. To his surprise and gratitude, they accepted. Jasmine arrived with her mother, dressed professionally, looking confident and poised. She was now 20 years old, attending college part-time while continuing to run her programs and manage her investments. Robert gave a speech acknowledging what had happened a year ago. He didn't minimize it or make excuses. He called it what it was, discrimination, and he talked about the work the bank had done since then to address the problem. Change is ongoing, Robert said to the assembled group. We can never declare ourselves finished with this work, but we can commit to continuing it. We can commit to treating every customer with dignity and respect, regardless of how they look or where they come from. He paused. A year ago, we failed a customer. We failed Jasmine Williams. We're deeply sorry for that failure, but we're grateful that she gave us the opportunity to learn and improve. Her courage in standing up for herself created change that benefits every customer who walks through our doors now. The audience applauded. Jasmine stood and walked to the front. She hadn't planned to speak, but Robert had asked if she'd be willing to say a few words if she felt comfortable. She had said maybe, depending on how she felt in the moment. Now standing in front of the group, she felt ready. A year ago, I came to this bank to withdraw my own money, Jasmine began. I was treated with suspicion and disrespect. It hurt, it made me angry. It made me question whether my accomplishments mattered at all if I could still be judged by my appearance. She looked around the room, but something good came from that pain. This bank made real changes, not just words but actions. And I learned something too. I learned that I could use my voice to create change, that I could turn a negative experience into something that helps others. She gestured to a display showing her Money Moves program. I started teaching financial literacy to young people of color. I share my story so they know they're not alone if they face discrimination. I teach them their rights so they can advocate for themselves, and I remind them that they deserve respect, no matter what anyone else might assume about them. Jasmine's voice grew stronger. Change happens when people are willing to acknowledge mistakes and do better. It happens when those who are hurt choose to fight for justice rather than just accepting things as they are. It happens when institutions take responsibility instead of making excuses. She looked at Robert, then at Maya and Patricia in the audience. I see the changes here. I've reviewed the data. I've talked to the advisory board members. This bank is doing the work. That matters. The audience applauded again. Diane Williams had tears in her eyes, proud of her daughter's grace and strength. After the event, Maya approached Jasmine nervously. They hadn't spoken since that day in the conference room. Jasmine, Maya said quietly. I know I've apologized before, but I want to say it again. I'm so sorry for how I treated you. What I did was wrong. I've been working hard to do better, but I know that doesn't undo the harm I caused. Jasmine looked at her for a long moment. I appreciate that. And I've seen the work you're doing. My mom is on the advisory board, you know. She tells me about the changes at the bank. She mentioned your name, how you've been taking extra training, how you've changed your approach. Maya nodded. That day changed me. I'll never forget it, and I'll never stop working to be better. That's all any of us can do, Jasmine said. Acknowledge our mistakes, learn from them, and keep trying to do better. She extended her hand. Maya shook it, feeling a weight lift slightly from her shoulders. It wasn't complete forgiveness exactly, but it was acknowledgement. Recognition that change was possible. As the evening ended and people left, Robert stood in the empty bank lobby, thinking about the past year. So much had changed, but so much work remained. A young boy and his mother entered the bank just before closing time. The boy looked nervous, clutching his first paycheck from his summer job. He was black, maybe 14 years old, wearing his work uniform. Maya was the only teller still at her counter. She smiled as they approached. Good evening, she said warmly. How can I help you? I want to deposit this, the boy said shyly, holding out his paycheck. That's wonderful. Your first paycheck? Maya asked kindly. The boy nodded, smiling. That's exciting. Let me help you with that. Maya processed the deposit with the same care and respect she would give anyone. She explained the process to the boy, teaching him how to read his deposit slip, congratulating him on his hard work. The boy left the bank smiling, his mother thanking Maya for her kindness. It was a small moment, an ordinary transaction, but it represented something bigger, a choice to see people as individuals deserving respect. a choice to treat everyone fairly, a choice to do better. Maya logged off her computer for the day, feeling something she hadn't felt in a long time: pride in her work. Not pride in being perfect, because she wasn't, but pride in trying, in learning, in growing. Outside, the sun was setting over the city. Jasmine Williams was across town, preparing for another workshop with young people eager to learn about managing their finances and advocating for themselves. Diane Williams was at home, reading through proposals from the bank's advisory board for additional improvements. Marcus Reed was in his office, reviewing cases and fighting for justice in all its forms. And at First National Bank, the lights dimmed as staff went home for the evening. The building was quiet, but the changes that had taken root there continued to matter. Every interaction, every choice to treat people with dignity, every effort to recognize and overcome bias, created ripples that spread outward. Change was slow. Change was imperfect. Change required constant effort, but change was possible. And that possibility, that hope, was worth fighting for.